Today, I'm releasing my newest interview with one of my clients, Tristan, who runs one of the largest piano academies in Montreal, in Canada. He's going to teach you how he used the hybrid method to create a life where he can teach and perform whenever he wants. So, when Tristan came to me, he was finally finished preparing for his own piano recital, all while teaching 30 to 40 hours a week and managing like 20 teachers in his piano school. So, while the traditional one-on-one model worked to get him up to that level, I remember him saying he needed a different way to grow, or else that burnout bomb is just going to blow up in his face. So the key, though, in this interview, we'll talk about Tristan's model, how he was able to transition from the one-on-one model to the hybrid model that he uses now. But the key to making it work that I wanted to preface is that he created a piano program that he believed in. So he had a hybrid of having like one-on-one, group, a course. He created a student community that gives maximum support and accountability to his students too. So with this new opportunity, he was really excited about the transformation that he could provide to his adult piano students. But most importantly, he believed in his own ability to just make it happen. And that translated to his students as well. So just seeing himself get excited and confident made his students really excited and confident as well. So in just a few months, he was able to fill up his adult beginner group piano to max capacity, and also hit his income goal for 2023 as well. I'm super proud of Tristan, because one of the best things that he told me though was that now he's able to dedicate like 10, 20 hours a week preparing for his next recital as well. So my intention though, for you to take away from this client interview, is that no matter how big or how small your music school is, I believe there is a path for you to creating a secure income that you want without sacrificing your own musician life in the process as well. So I'm excited to check out his story, and I will see you in the video.
So 6 years ago, I pretty much started my music school because I was running out of students. And I came up with the idea of buying the domain name Montreal Piano Lessons, knowing that I wasn't an expert in SEO, but I knew enough about SEO to know that if you have the keywords in your domain name, it's supposed to help. I also had some YouTube videos that had 150 views, so I know YouTube and Google are connected. I bought the domain names. I hired a friend of mine who was just starting her web design business, and she confirmed that it was a wise choice to buy those domain names. And within 2.5 months, she managed to get me on the first page of Google. So I started getting a lot of students, which was really wonderful. At a certain point, I'd say in July of 2017, I had too many. So I started hiring teachers. So I'll cut to the chase because it's been a long story. But 6 years ago, I was alone. I had 30 students, and now I have between 15 to 20 teachers and about a little over 200 students.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
growth is great. It's exponential. It's all through Google. We get on average 15 new students a month. Mostly adult beginners, some adult intermediates. I seem to be very popular with adults for some reason, which is great. We love them. It's great. And occasionally we get kids too. And sometimes we get super high level kids. I just had one that I taught for 7 years who is now doing international competitions. So that's really great. Where I was until I met you was that I was teaching a lot, sometimes up to 36 hours a week. And that's a lot, more than I ever had. And I was aware of your newsletters because I was getting them.
Mm-hmm.
And somebody had mentioned the concept of the hybrid class. My aunt, who's retired, was taking hybrid piano lessons in Toronto.
Oh, really?
And
What was
I
that
really
like for
asked her, I
her?
said, really, how does that work? So she told me how it worked. And I said, well, I just saw this guy, Ben, who's been sending out newsletters, and he mentioned something called the hybrid class. That's when I got in touch with you again, because we'd spoken a year ago.
Yeah.
And you and I worked out a very, very specific, well-structured plan for the hybrid beginner adult class.
Yeah.
We get so many adult beginners. And that's what I did. I created it in September. We are now, today is December 22nd. I've had 3 full months. Every single student has renewed. They all love it. They
I
have
love it. I love it.
we found just the right, it was very tricky. We had to find the right pricing. And this is where you came in, because this was unknown territory for me. I mean, pricing private lessons is not a problem. I've been doing it for 35 years, but I've never done group. And especially the idea of doing group on Zoom, I'd never even used Zoom that way for more than one person. So I had to learn how to do that. And I created a Facebook group specifically for that, as you suggested. And then it was a question of pitching it to the students that I was getting in August, because I was teaching adult beginners in preparation for September.
Yep.
So we came up with the idea of giving them a first lesson to see which ones fit in the group, because we both realized that not adult beginners, not all adult beginners will do well in a group setting. Some need
Yeah.
more attention. So I found the right balance. The mix is about, well, I have about what, 10 students, 9 students in this group. I could go up to 12. Right now I'm happy with 9 or 10. January, maybe I'll add another one. I'll see. It's not a necessity,
Mhm.
but it has worked like a charm, especially because living in Montreal, I mean, you have probably a lot of listeners who are sunny California where you guys don't experience sub-zero weather, but my students are so happy not to have to leave their home in this cold weather. That's when it really kicked in how good this program was for them. Some of them even keep taking their because they get one-on-one lesson a month. They'll do that via Zoom as well. One is a Brazilian. She's never
Yeah.
had a Canadian winter, and she's going nuts with this -10. It's only -10. It's going to get to -30 in February. Poor girl will go in a coma. But but that was a big game changer. And the other thing that you and I discussed was the idea of creating a registration fee, which I'd never thought of doing. You also encouraged me, because I started a bit lower, and you encouraged me to raise it. It took me a while to have the I don't know, I guess the courage to do that, because I've
Mhm.
always had a problem with that. It's not, pricing in Montreal is not always easy, because sometimes it's a bit taken for granted that piano teachers should charge as little as possible. So I found a happy medium, because we Montreal is a cheaper city. We don't charge Toronto prices or New York prices,
Mhm.
but we are just in the right place. I've compared with all the other schools; we're fine. But yeah, I raised the fee for the registration fee. It's been no problem. Every student has accepted it, uh, and it was just talking to you that helped me realize that it was justified that I charge that fee, because I do a lot of work outside of just teaching my own students to keep the school running and doing well. All the texts that I exchange with my teachers, making sure they're doing a good job, making sure their students are happy, doing research on the net for repertoire for adult beginners or whatever, putting out videos. This is stuff that's done outside of lesson. So that's where the registration fee comes in.
Yeah. I love
I'm,
that.
I'm glad that I did that. So that helps. So basically, you've helped me increase my passive income, which allows me to lower the hours of teaching per week to a reasonable 30 that is still flexible. If I need to teach less because I want to practice more, or I want to go out to a concert or go to a supper, I can do that because I have enough passive income. And that is really great. I can now afford 2 months of vacation a year, 2 months where I don't teach at all. That's
Yes.
really good. And more than that, because I'm older. I mean, so right now I have to think about retirement, and at this rate, in 10 years, I will have things keep going the way they are going. In 10 years, I'll have enough money that I can officially semi-retire, because I'll never stop teaching. I love it, but I'll teach 15 hours a week. I won't need to do 30. So that is that is huge. Because for years I manage, but I
Yeah.
sometimes I struggled, sometimes I did well. I always manage, but now I'm beyond managing. I'm doing well. I still have a lot of my income has to go towards retirement planning, because I started late, unfortunately, but that's life. So
Yeah.
a
Appreciate
big
you
chunk goes
for
to that, and what's left, at least I still have something left for vacation expenses. So I don't live extravagantly. I don't travel a lot. I don't go out to restaurants all the time. I have to manage my expenses. It is what it is. But I no longer worry about, say, for example, getting sick with COVID for a week, 2 weeks. Not a problem. I'll be sick. It'll be a vacation, because I've got people working for me. I've got passive income. And that's, for any musician, that's huge, because we're used to living paycheck to paycheck, right?
yep. Yeah. Appreciate you for sharing that. It's like the whole transformation right there. And I'd love to dive into what you felt like before you started this group hybrid program as well. Like what your schedule looked like. How did it feel Like, did you even have
Well,
time to practice back then?
I did. I was teaching at that point about 35, 36 hours a week to really, really achieve those financial goals. I could teach less and I was still doing fine, but the retirement planning was a little more stressful. Um, I did a concert last October, and so I decided to practice more, which meant I had to teach less. But the hybrid approach did several things that were really good. A, per hour, I'm able to make more money than I can teaching private lessons. I actually make more money than even teaching the most advanced students because I charge a bit more for virtuoso advanced students. But Montreal really is capped. We can't go beyond a certain level because other schools are all there's a you know how it is, supply and demand. There's so many awesome pianists on the island of Montreal that the price is unfortunately lower than it should be. So
Hmm.
that's like, but the hybrid approach automatically, because there are more people in the class, they're happy because they're paying less than they would if they were taking one-on-one lessons. But because it's a group, I end up making a little bit more per hour.
Yeah.
So there's another thing that happened, another benefit is that teaching beginners is not easy. You're repeating the same thing over and over again. You're teaching the same concepts. They're beginners. It can be very tiring, even with the good beginners, the ones who are talented and practice. It's still pretty tiring. This has renewed my enthusiasm for teaching beginners because when you're in a group Zoom lesson with 3 people, you're so actively going from one student to the other that there is no time to get bored. When you teach beginners, any of my teachers will say that we love them, we love them to death, but sometimes it can be a bit boring when you've got 3 beginners in a row and you're teaching what a quarter note is and a half note 3 times in a row, right? When you're doing it in a group class and all they're more or less the same level, A, it's on Zoom, so you're just clicking, so it's great. And B, you're actively going from one student, you say, okay, oh, I've given this guy 10 minutes, I got to move on to the next one. The hour just flies. And I never thought about that, but it's really nice. The other thing that you and I figured out was that to make the group class more interesting, include in the package a once a month get together in my studio, because I have a nice studio with a grand piano that has a really nice big screen TV. So I've been doing that. They love it. They really look forward to the monthly gathering where I offer dessert and a bottle of wine. There might be 6, 7 of them. It depends on how busy they are. And now they're good enough that they play for each other. So I will give a mini masterclass to beginners, which is something I've never done before. It works like a charm. And what's been happening is that the students themselves have told me what I'd hope would happen, which is that they feel inspired when they hear the other students playing a piece that they know they'll be playing. Because unlike a regular masterclass with advanced students where they're all playing different pieces, in a beginner masterclass, this is all new for me, they're all playing the same pieces because we're using the same book. It's a really good book. So they're all the first piece they play is Jingle Bells. Well, it doesn't matter. It's a milestone.
Hmm.
It's all about how I sell it, right? And I said to them, congratulations, you've done Jingle Bells. Yes, the others will do it too. There's no shame in that. You're all playing the same piece. And one student told me it was really inspiring to see the person play whatever piece it was, because I know that in 4 months, if I work hard, I'll be playing that piece too. And I hope to play as well as he did.
Yeah,
That's
there we
all I
go.
need to hear. That's how I knew that the hybrid model was really a success. It was, I've had nobody quit or say, this is not for me. I selected carefully. It really isn't for everybody because I offered it to some adult beginners who tried for their first lesson and they said, no, I'd rather just one-on-one, no problem.
Yeah. That's
But
a good, can I ask a question about that?
yeah,
Like, for you, with being able to test or be able to qualify, like, who is actually a good fit for this hybrid model? Like, who have you found that is a good fit for this program? Like, how do you know if an adult beginner is a good
sometimes
fit?
it's financial. If I know that the person is financially tight, as you know, inflation is a disaster for the last 2 years. It's been a burden for everybody on the planet. So we all feel the pinch of inflation, some more than others. So the second I feel a student is a little bit tight financially, which comes in a lesson, they'll mention it, or I just ask them what they do for a living. If they're doctors and lawyers, it's not a problem. But if they're 25-year-olds and olds who are doing master's programs, then their money's tight. They're on the budget. So I know that already that is a good selling point. I say, this will cost you less per month.
Gotcha, gotcha.
And the second thing is, living in Montreal, I always use the climate. I say, trust
The
me,
climate.
if this is your first weather, if with that Brazilian girl, I said, have you ever experienced minus 30 Celsius? She goes, no. And I have nightmares thinking about it. I said, good, I have just the thing for you. So every time I see her on Zoom, I say, aren't you happy you're at home with your four cats and you have your lesson in the comfort of your sweatpants? She goes, I'm so happy. I love it. She goes, I don't go out. I'm not going out for the next 4 months. I'm just staying home. So money, climate is a big thing in Montreal
Hmm.
because climate really is a drag for everybody. Even a
Yeah.
seasoned Canadian like myself, we don't like nobody likes minus 30. Um,
What about like the
the,
quality of the student?
that's
Like,
where that's my next question. So my next answer is I will know within an hour. Some beginners are just naturally gifted. They've got great motor coordination. So if they get to a certain page in the book within an hour, I know they'll learn really quickly. Those are usually quite good for the hybrid models. If they're really slow and they can't get to that specific page in the book, I will take one. I've got one who's slower. It's fine because she's the only one who's that slow. The others are fast, which means that if I spend maybe an extra 5 minutes with her on the Zoom class, the other two won't mind because they're fine on their own.
gotcha.
The key, if I'm telling this to the teachers who are listening to this and they want to create their hybrid class, don't make the mistake of if you're going to have 12 adult beginners or beginners in your class, they have to be adults. Little kids couldn't do that. But adult beginners, you can't have 12 adult beginners who are slow. It'll be a disaster. You'll stress out. They won't be happy because they
Mm,
won't improve. You also can't have, I've disqualified some because they were too good. Some adult beginners are really gifted. I've got one, for example, she just left. I take her one-on-one privates because she did, I don't know, 12 years of violin.
mhm.
So obviously, even over the phone, if they tell me they played violin for 12 years, I know they're going to be good. Well, it took her 4 months to do what it takes a regular adult beginner 18 months to do. So
Gotcha.
obviously, after 4 months, she was already grade 3 out of 10. We use a system in Montreal called the Royal Conservatory of Music in Toronto. They've
Mhm.
got 10 books, grade 10 being Bach, Beethoven fugues, and Mozart sonatas. Well, she's already grade 3, and she started barely 5 months ago. So that's 4 years of piano in 5 months. Now, she wouldn't fit into the group because she would just fly through everything.
Gotcha. So your group is more
So
a little bit more like
in
guided,
the
like
middle.
everyone's kind of moving at the same around the same pace.
Pretty much, pretty
Gotcha.
much. You have to eliminate the extremes. The ones who are really gifted and too fast, you either give them one-on-one or I send them to my teachers if I have no room for them. And the ones who are too slow, I will keep them in the group as long as the others are fast enough that they compensate, or I'll give them one-on-one if I have the time, or I'll send them to another teacher.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's how I do it. There's also another thing too. It's the personality. Some people really are not comfortable playing in front of other people. They really want to play piano just for themselves. So they don't find the idea of a once a month master class playing for other people appealing. They just really want to do it for themselves. I respect that completely. And those students will end up just doing privates. I'll ask them, they'll tell me. So I've had a couple who said that they prefer privates. So either I took them as privates or I send them to other teachers. I have enough teachers that it's not a problem. The others, it was an easy sell. I remember in August, you and I were chatting every week at that point. It took me, you and I finished the plan by late July. We had the whole protocol, the pricing, everything was written out. Then we were working on the sales pitch. That was end of July. And a month later, I had 11 students.
Yeah.
One was leaving, he's going to France, but he's super happy. He he was the most advanced in the hybrid group because he played 8 years of trumpet. So I knew that he would be fast,
Yeah.
and I also knew that he would inspire the others. And there's the group effect. I even told him, I said, you really inspired one of the students when you played the last week at the group class, and he was really happy. So
Nice.
there's a lot of the accountability principle, like you do with your group, with the Kajabi group.
Hmm.
You write your wins, right? When I say, well, everybody celebrate this person just played this particular piece, and that's an important milestone in the beginner program.
There we go. There we go. How so
Well, appreciate you for sharing all that. I think that's super important that like, the hybrid model, it can be for I think the important thing that you have discovered is who it's really for. And the type of like the way that you teach it, since it's a little bit more guided, since you have a curriculum that everyone goes through, the type of person that would be a good fit for it. So it makes it easy to sell when you're just like, oh, I know you'd be good. I know this would be a good fit for you. Um, but also, um, you mentioned it a little bit, but not explicitly, that I wanted to mention for other teachers. But a big reason why Tristan has been really successful with this as well is because one, he's been really confident in his own ability to make it work, but also the leadership and the culture that you built with it really, really matters as well. If you're just putting everyone in a group and you're letting everyone just play on their own, like it
No,
probably wouldn't work as effective as the way that you built it
it
out.
wouldn't work at all. It wouldn't
Yeah.
work at all. You're absolutely correct because you and I talk about that a lot. You've done it brilliantly with your Kajabi group, and you've created a community, an ecosystem. I've done the same thing on my end with my
Yeah.
teachers. We have an ecosystem, 15 teachers in 15 different locations in Montreal, 15 to 20. We combine our resources when we do concerts. So I use the same protocol, the same approach for the adult beginner hybrid model, which is they come, and because it's always the same people who see each other on Zoom, and I never thought that it would happen, but just they see each other on Zoom, and there's always a 1 minute of chatting with the three students I'm giving a lesson to. Sometimes I'll have one play on Zoom in front of the others, and everybody claps, right?
Yeah.
But I never thought it would create a camaraderie, and it did. One student who's she's the youngest, she's 17. The others are all between 25 and 35, and there's a lot of camaraderie and fun teasing. I always tease her as being the baby of the group. So she came to the group class. We had a great time. We had cake. Everybody played. And at the end of it, something organic happened that I didn't expect. They all got up and left at the same time. And a week later, she told me that they all walked to the metro, to the subway together.
Oh,
So
really?
without me doing anything, they just joined as a group and they walked together to the subway. And she said, I asked the others how old they were, and you were right. I'm the baby of the group. So of course I teased her about it. It was hilarious. And she's adorable. She's a sweetheart, and she's really motivated. And the thing is that it's the familiarity of the group that really helps.
Hmm.
They get to know each other. We chat around the table and we chat about life. Another thing that I did that works like a charm is I have a little game, social game. I've got a big screen TV, and I said, okay, now we play a game. I'm giving you my phone. You cast it to the big screen. You go to YouTube. You find me a 2-3 minute video, anything you want. It could be a song you love, either classical, pop, rap. I don't care. Just make us discover something you love, or it could be a cat video, and they laugh. So that's a great way to build um, enthusiasm. I'll tell you why it's important, because the
Hmm.
very first meeting I had with my beginners was a tough one for me. Reason being that I've organized tons of uh, soirees, anywhere from 10 to 90 people in my apartment. I've had parties with 90 people. They've always been a success, but that's because I'm good at matching people. I don't just put anybody together, right? This is different because these beginners, not only do they not know each other, but they're not from any other community. So they meet for the first time in my place. And the very first time we met, they were so shy, nobody said anything. They were very, very shy. And also they were beginners, so they couldn't play. So what I did is I played something, and then I gave them a 20-minute presentation on Beethoven, and I played them the first movement of Beethoven's Fifth Symphony on my big screen TV on YouTube. So I said, today's going to be a get to know you meeting. You can have dessert, and you're going to learn something about Beethoven. So I can use that just to teach them something about music. It depends, right? I improvise. Now it's easier because they can all play. So last time, two canceled because of COVID. People are still getting sick. One canceled because of the weather. So I only had 4 people, but it was still fine because they all played. And we ended up spending 45 minutes, the four of us. Nobody thought it was a waste of time. Absolutely not. They were all glad they came because I gave them a 10-minute master. They're playing simple pieces, so you can't teach them more than 10 minutes on Jingle Bells.
Yeah.
But still, it was worth it. And this, like I said, it makes me a better teacher because my enthusiasm must remain high to maintain the group energy,
Hmm.
which is harder to do when you're teaching one-on-one 3 times in a row the same piece.
Yeah. I'm glad
So
it sounds like you just have fun with it
yeah,
at the end of the
that's it.
day.
I have more fun teaching them in groups than I do teaching them privately, except now when I give them the private lesson because I know them in the group, it's different now. Well, it allows me to teach fewer beginners one-on-one. So that's part of what is healthy because it's a win-win for everybody. If you teach too many beginners one-on-one and you're teaching Jingle Bells 4 hours in a row, 4 times, it's hard to be motivated by the fourth hour,
Yeah,
and that's normal for anybody,
I
whether it's
know.
kid beginners or adult beginners. But when you put them in a group, there's the group dynamic that keeps you motivated as a teacher and that keeps them motivated as students.
Yeah, yep.
To go back to the sense of community, yes, it's the once a month thing is really great. Sometimes we do it once every 6 weeks. It depends. And the videos that you suggested, I came up with the idea, and then you helped me with that. I created videos where I play every single piece in the book.
Yeah,
That's on the Facebook group.
can you break down just real quick on like what you actually offer in the hybrid model? I don't think we
Okay,
covered that.
it's
I think
simple. It's simple. The hybrid model,
like as a
they
student, what
get
would I get?
you normally, instead of getting 4 one-on-one lessons a month, you get a 1 in-person lesson, and the other 3 are on Zoom in groups of maximum 3 people. So I have 3 hours allotted: Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday at 6:30. And on Facebook, people sign up for the lesson. Once the maximum of 3 has been reached, they can't sign up. They find another day. And those hours are set in stone. They're hours where I literally don't do anything anyways. I either have supper or I practice. So that's fine. It's been no problem. And then there are 3 other time slots that I reserve for the in-person lessons. Because if I have 11 students, I teach 3 in person and I teach 3 online. So I only teach 6 hours instead of teaching 12 hours. I could go up to 12 students if I wanted. I've got about 11, but 12 hours, 12 students taught in 6 hours instead of 12. That's amazing.
There
And
we
those
go.
6 hours, I get paid a bit more because of the group effect. So they pay a little bit less per month, but I end up getting more per hour.
Yep.
They get like I said, 1 lesson in person, 3 lessons on Zoom in groups of 3. They meet once a month at my place. It's exclusive for those beginners. They also have access to a Facebook group that is private, where I have put up videos for every single piece in the book that I use. There's a series of maybe 12 videos, and the book is 90 pages, and I managed to play every piece. And I'm really happy. 2 of my students told me those videos helped them a lot. They watched them
Nice.
over and over again. They pause them, they listen to the piece, they watch what I do. I've got 2 cameras. I've got 1 overhead. I've got 1 on the side. So that was a really good idea. And I'm glad to see that not all of them use them, but a few do. And that's all that matters. So the Facebook group is used only for those who use the videos, and for all the students to sign up for the Zoom classes. Every Sunday, I make a Facebook invitation for the Zoom classes, and then they sign up. That's how simple it is. They pay me at the beginning of the month, which is really great. Then they're done. They're happy. They pay once a month. They don't have to think about it. And all that money comes into the bank account on the same day. It's always really helpful because it's on the first of the month. So that's because normally we do a pay by the lesson model when it's private lessons. That's how I've always done it because it's easier. So this is nice because it's 10 people paying me a bigger amount on the same day.
Yep. Yep. Yeah. I'm glad you were able to figure out what works for you, because I think a lot of teachers, if you're listening right now and you're like, oh, I got to do exactly what Tristan does, like that might not be the answer for you in particular. And I think an important thing about the hybrid model is that it can be different for every single teacher. So a lot of the work that we had to do was really figure out what that structure is that's going to work for you and the type of lifestyle that you want to live as well. But then also you figuring out who's the right fit for this program as well has been like the formula for success
Yeah,
for you.
that's very important.
I know that a lot of teachers have trouble with the transition part, especially when they're a little scared to make this transition. And the biggest fear is always like, oh, what if students don't like it? What if students like leave?
Exactly.
What was your experience like? What were kind of like some of the fears that were coming up, and how'd you have
I
the
had the
courage
exact
to
same
get through
fear.
that?
So I tell any teacher listening to this, it's completely normal. I had the same fear. Why? Because we experience fear when we do something that is outside our comfort zone. I've been teaching the same way for so many years. I know where my strengths are. So I've been in my comfort zone for a long time. Same thing with repertoire. I'm fine for the romantics, the classics, but I'm not an expert at Bach. So if I have a student who's very advanced and needs to do Bach very seriously, I will actually send him to one of my colleagues, right? With the hybrid model, it was the same thing. This was way outside my comfort zone. First of all, I'm not much of a, unlike your generation, you're tech whizzes because you were born with this stuff.
Yeah, I know.
But I needed your help a lot because you were helping me just understand Google Docs. I didn't even know how that worked. But just working my way around Zoom made me a bit nervous. Things like being nervous about the technology not working.
Mm,
Sometimes it would make me worry that they would quit just because the technology was sometimes not working.
mhm.
But it was just really silly. Sometimes I just had to reboot my computer because the camera didn't connect. It happens. Um, I was nervous only for the first Zoom lesson and for the first in-group meeting. After the first in-group meeting, which was only an hour or 15 minutes, I was exhausted. Now I look forward to the group meetings. No problem at all. I mean, the group meetings, I'm very looking forward to it because it's a class. I teach them. We have fun. We know each other. But the very first group meeting, we didn't know each other. So I had to be the MC. It's the same
Mhm.
thing as being an MC. You got to crack some jokes. You got to make people laugh. And thank God I had prepared a 15-minute presentation on Beethoven because what else was I going to do? They couldn't play piano. They had just started a
Yeah.
week before. So that was the only difficult part. And the first week of doing Zoom lessons, because I would know some of the students, I wasn't sure if they would really like it long term because they were a little bit faster. I thought they might find it boring. And one of them even told me, she says, I wasn't sure about the Zoom, the hybrid thing, but now after a month, I can tell you I really like it. I'm totally fine with it. So she's going to continue. And
Nice,
she's the most
nice.
advanced of the group. She's actually the most advanced because she played when she was a kid. But it's still convenient for her. She saves money and she's also pregnant. She's gonna be giving birth in 4 months.
Oh
She's
wow,
really happy
congrats.
not to have to commute, not to have to commute in minus 30 weather to come to my house every week.
Yeah.
So it's a win-win for her too, for her own personal reasons, even though she's the most advanced of all of them.
Mhm.
She's a grade 3 now, but she's okay with continuing the hybrid model.
I love that. I love that.
Some of them don't come to the groups, but that's fine. They just don't feel the need. They're still improving.
Yeah.
So you just go with you, the important thing is don't force anything on anyone.
Mhm.
Let it evolve organically.
Yep.
That's what I learned to do. Well, it's my protocol for everything I do. But once you have discussed the protocol with a coach like you and your colleagues, or you've got something solid, learn to trust it. Do it one step at a time. Let the process take care of itself. Let it evolve organically.
Mhm.
Don't try to force anything.
Yep.
And learn to read people. I call this micro calibration. It's a very special skill that everybody needs to develop, not just piano teachers, but anybody in life, is to read people's body language. Even on Zoom, I can tell if they like a suggestion or not. Like
Mhm.
yesterday, I had the Zoom class for January because I started late. I'm starting later. I have a vacation. We don't have a full month, so we only have 2 weeks. So I said, I have come up with a pricing method for the last 2 weeks of no January because, as you know, the first 2 weeks I'm not teaching, and we'll start again in February doing the whole regular pay once a month. And so I explained it to the 3 students, and just by the look on their face, I could tell they were all happy with it. They all thought it was a perfectly good compromise in terms of the pricing because I had to
Nice.
reorganize the pricing. So I came up with a solution. It took me 10 minutes. And I said, okay, well, you three, I want to ask you what you think. This is how I'd like to do the pricing for the 2 weeks in January because there's no point in you paying for the whole month. You're not getting a whole month of lessons. And I have to find a way. I can't fit 12 students that month. Some of you won't have the in-person lesson, but you can still do the Zoom. This is how we'll price it. And they loved it.
Nice,
So you
nice.
learn to read people. You learn to read the nonverbal cues. And with experience, you get a sense within 5-10 minutes whether this person will be a good candidate for a hybrid group model.
100%. Yeah. I think that's so important because when we are like when we're trying to figure out like is uh is this working or not? Like, we got to get the feedback from our students, especially like in the beginning part when you're
Yeah,
trying to figure it out, your students are trying to figure it out. um One thing I always tell teachers is just to set clear expectations, right? Because
yes,
nobody thinks it's going to be perfect. You're not gonna, it's not gonna be perfect, but also like your students know it's not gonna be perfect too.
absolutely.
And I remember when I started group lessons in back in COVID when I was teaching piano in group lessons, and I didn't even know how to teach groups. I just told my piano parents, I was like, hey, I'm trying something new. I'm gonna experiment with it. It's not gonna be perfect, but I'm gonna try to make it as fun as possible for your kid. And all the parents just loved it. They're like, yeah, I trust you. And that's the important thing too, that we have to trust that our students trust us as
Exactly.
teachers to make that work.
Something else that you say that I really like, it's like a good affirmation. You say, I'm paraphrasing, but it's better to take imperfect action than to take no action. Is that
Yeah.
something you say? Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
that's brilliant because a lot of us are perfectionists. I am too.
Yeah.
And we get locked into what I call the ivory tower syndrome. It's never
Mhm.
good enough, right? So we lock ourselves in an ivory tower. We think that only when it's perfect, then I'll present it. Well, you don't realize that it's beta testing. You don't know, you can't improve it until you've actually started testing it for
Yep.
people. So it's just about presenting it properly. You don't present it as the be and end all. You say, okay, this is something new, but I think it's going to work. And I'm open to suggestions and adjustments.
Yep.
And then they're fine with it. People are fine. Um, I even apologize for things like, I'm sorry, guys, I'm not great with Zoom. For some reason, I can't get my camera to work. So I got to restart. I got to reboot. I'll see you in 2 minutes. And then I just extend the lesson by 2, 3 minutes. Everybody's fine with that.
Yeah.
You know, it's funny. I mean, I'm like anybody. I can stress out over the stupidest thing. Oh my God, I just missed 2 minutes because I couldn't connect my computer to the Zoom. Why is that happening? And then I start worrying that they're all going to quit. We it's called catastrophizing, and I'm like anybody else. We do it a lot. I mean, we've all been through hell.
Yeah.
The pandemic was not fun, right?
Yeah.
So
Traumatizing.
our sense of we were a bit. I think all of humanity is suffering from a bit of PTSD. We catastrophize everything. We worry
Hmm.
about something being the next big one, which could be. But right now we're talking about teaching piano, so it's not brain surgery. We're not. Nobody's life is at stake.
Yeah.
So it's important to put that into perspective, and that's where the idea of taking imperfect action instead of doing nothing at all is going to change everything,
Yep.
because you're going to do something, allow it to be imperfect, and understand that by doing that, it's going to get really close to as perfect as possible much faster than if you do nothing at all except on paper.
Hmm. Yeah. And I wanted to kind of pivot the conversation towards you again, because I know we've been catching up with the voice notes and you've been telling me about your own performance and things like that. Feel free to talk about like now the shift,
Well, I can
like
tell you
in
that
terms of the growth, the
it's
business, and also
wonderful because
time.
now the motivation to practice is stronger than it's been in a long time, since I have flexibility I didn't have before. I've cut 5 or 6 hours of teaching a week. That's 5 or 6 hours of practicing I can do. So now I'm working on a piece that I've loved since I was 17. It's one of the most difficult pieces in the repertoire, the Brahms Second Piano Concerto. And I've started playing it in public, private concerts here. And I might build up to 100 seats or a 200 seat hall. I've got a couple of options I'm looking into for maybe next September, but I'm not there yet. I'm just doing it one step at a time. But it's just really wonderful to know that now, because of my schedule, I can do at least 3 hours of solid practicing before my first student walks in the door. So even on big, because sometimes I'll teach 6 hours a day. It happens. On that day, I practiced no more than 2.5, 3 hours. That's good enough. I'm fine. Um, it's been a joy to be able to rediscover the piano, to rediscover the joy of practicing, because I have flexibility in my teaching. It was very important because I need to balance teaching and practicing. Sometimes practicing for months is fine. I don't need to play for anybody, but there comes a point where after practicing for a few months, I feel like doing a concert. That's when I do it. But I couldn't do that before. I couldn't have done that if I'd been teaching 36, 37 hours a week. It
Yeah.
would have been just too much. Wouldn't have felt confident enough to do it. Or if didn't have the flexibility to teach less for 1 week just so that I can do a concert. Now I do. So I'm very grateful for that. And just the not just the practicing, but having time for a social life relatively, because I still work quite hard. Between the practicing and the teaching, I'm working 55 hours a week, maybe 60, but practicing is not the same as teaching. It's sort of meditative. So I
Yeah.
love it. I see the time go by, except on days when I don't feel like it, but I still do it because that's what discipline is all about. So it doesn't feel like 60 hours of slogging. It's
Yep.
it's it's 30 hours of teaching, but the other 25 hours is playing a piece that I have loved since I was a teenager.
Hmm.
So it's a more balanced 55 hours than some of my friends who are accountants and then have to go through phases where they're doing 55 hours a week of accounting. I admire them because I couldn't do that.
No, that's so important because this quote has kind of been like my theme for this month so far, and I'm gonna definitely gonna carry it into 2024 as well. But one thing I've learned is that, your burnout doesn't come from the number of hours that you work, but
No.
by the core emotion and energy that is fueling the work. That's why like
Absolutely.
you're 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 apparently working
Yeah.
more than you have before, but it's not working to you.
It
You're
doesn't feel
getting to
like work.
play your piano
Exactly.
as work.
Exactly. Yeah, absolutely. No, that's a very good quote. It's very true. If I'm surrounded with the right people, I'm lucky now that I can choose my students. I have the best class I've ever had in terms of quality of people, not in terms of actually level two, like because I have adult beginners, sorry, adult advanced students who are really good. We've done 6 recitals so far in the last 7 years, 8 years, and our next recital will be one of the best ones yet.
Nice.
It's wonderful. So I've gotten to the point where I filtered, and all the students that I have are students that I don't care what level they are. I don't even care if they practiced last week. They're good people. They're fun. We have a good time. Some of
Yeah.
them come and they haven't practiced. I just had to get out of my house, and I'm just glad to see you. I just want to just play piano for an hour, and they're totally happy. So that's the beauty of it. Therefore, that hour goes by quickly. It doesn't feel like work, even if they haven't practiced much, because their energy is positive. So I surrounded myself with good energy. And same thing with the teachers I've got. They're all fantastic pianists and wonderful people. We go out together. We go to movies together. We play. We have musical soirees. We play our repertoire for each other. So I've created another ecosystem there too, where
Nice.
we have our piano club where we play. I play the Brahms for 10 pianists last week. These are professional pianists with doctorates, and I play one of the most difficult pieces in the repertoire. That's a great boost for my confidence. So um, there's that camaraderie, and there's like you said, the community spirit that you can create on many different levels in different areas of your life.
Hmm.
So I use that model for everything. You know,
Yeah.
it works like a charm, and it's what the so-called work-life balance is about. I'm totally happy spending 25 hours a week working on those Brahms. That's what I want to do. For
Yep.
sure. If I wanted to, I could just practice less and go out more. I could. But it's really cold here, so I don't feel like going out. That's one thing. In the summer, I go out more. But trust me, if you're going to Montreal in February, you'll understand what I'm saying.
Hmm.
I'm totally happy being home, practicing, and then just reading a book or educating myself, listening to podcasts at night. Because when it's 11 p.m. and it's minus 30 Celsius outside, you're not going anywhere. Trust me. So that's a recurrent theme when you're in Montreal. We organize our activities around the climate. Some people love
Hmm.
to ski, fine. Others are more the type to hibernate.
Yep.
That's me. So I have tons of things to keep me busy,
Nice.
and it's just growing well. I can't complain. The next step, once I have a teacher who has enough adult beginners to start a group class, then I'll be coaching them to do the same thing, so they
Nice.
can
I'm
also
excited for
increase
that.
their income. Yeah, that would be the next step. Well, we're not there yet because you need to have at least 8 or 9 adult beginners who are more or less in the same book.
Hmm.
Then you can start thinking about doing groups.
Nice, nice. Well, cool. Appreciate you for sharing all of this, all of your
My
experience.
pleasure.
And
And thank you for everything you've done.
of course, of course. I know you shared so much wisdom already, but is there anything else that you wanted, like last things that like final advice for teachers who were feeling how you were feeling like before you started the group class?
I would say really look into the hybrid model, because I didn't even know it was possible until my aunt told me she had been taking lessons during the pandemic with, this is a bit weird, six other women, six other ladies who are retired. I don't know how that, I'm not sure how that works. Ethically, I couldn't do it, because in an hour, how in God's name can you give six people enough time? Three is max. Three, they each get 20 minutes. So they're happy with that. But six people, what, they get 10 minutes each in an hour? How much is there? Are they getting charged? I don't know. I don't know.
I
But
don't
I
know. They might be teaching like a different way or something like that. It might be a little bit
maybe,
more of
I
like
don't
a
know.
coaching
But
setting, maybe.
I couldn't do it. I'm happy with three. That's fine. Still, it worked for my aunt, and now I
Yep.
know it works for me, and I know that there are other people in your group that you've coached that do the hybrid model. Um, it depends also. I'm lucky because the SEO and my website on Google, I get tons of requests, and it's our niche. We get a lot of adult beginners because those people type Montreal adult piano lessons beginner, and boom, I'm at the top of Google. So
There we
they
go.
find me. It's our niche. So good. Now I've taken that niche that I've had for 6 years, but thanks to you, combined it in a group class in a hybrid model that is partly online too, which helps, because I couldn't do a group class in my studio. I don't have three pianos in my studio, and
Yeah.
nobody would want to come three times a month in cold weather to a group class. But doing it from the comfort of their own homes, it works like a charm. So, final words of advice, I would say, just accept the fact that the first week of starting the class will be a bit difficult, especially if, as a teacher, you're more of an introvert. Work hard. The first group meeting will be harder for you than it was for me, because I'm a former extrovert who thinks that the pandemic is now what would be classified as an ambivert. I'm happy being
Balance now.
alone. The pandemic, I had no choice. For 2 years, I was alone in my apartment. So I'm totally happy spending 3 days not seeing anybody, reading, listening to podcasts, practicing, exercising at home. Before the pandemic, that was hard. After 3 days, I started to get lonely. So now I'm an ambivert, which is very useful and flexible. But before that, I was an extrovert.
Uh-huh.
So it's my default system. So if I have to entertain 9 people who don't know each other and are very shy, and I've got to talk for 20 minutes, for me, it's a walk in the park. I've been doing it for years. I've been doing it since I was a kid.
Mhm.
But if you're naturally an introvert, I'm warning you, the first group, it won't be a lesson if they don't know how to play. The first group gathering will be harder for you. So my advice is make sure you've got 20 minutes of something to offer them. So that's what I did. So I decided, you know what, I'll talk about Beethoven because he was the first composer I discovered. I've got a big screen TV. Let's watch a performance of the first movement of Beethoven's Fifth Symphony.
Yeah.
Right. So come up with something that you can offer them on the very first group meeting. It's important because it has to give them a reason to want to come back.
Mhm.
It'll take a while before they can play well enough that you can actually teach them in a sort of a masterclass setting, even if they're beginners. If they're total beginners, the first group meeting, we did it in early September. This is what you and I agreed on to get it off the ground. I said, okay, you guys are beginners. That doesn't matter. Next week, I want you all to meet at my studio. I think there were like 7 or 8 of them. And I offered them cake. I did that 20-minute presentation. Nobody played. Of course, nobody played because nobody could play.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But a month later, when they all came, this time they played.
There we
Even if it was
go.
literally, we're talking a 16-bar piece, Jingle Bells. Doesn't matter. They were proud to play it. But the first lesson, nobody plays. So you, as a teacher, will do all the heavy lifting. So if you've never done that, be ready for it. And if necessary, get coaching from Ben or from other people, your friends, your extrovert friends. Train yourself to public speak, do Toastmasters, whatever.
Yeah.
Be ready that the first time they meet, the first 5 minutes are going to be awkward as hell. I kid you not. And I've done so many parties and get-togethers, but this was one of the most awkward because these people were not matched by personality. The only thing they had in common is that they were starting piano lessons, but they were starting. Whereas now, what they have in common is that they've all played the same pieces. So they can actually talk. We can actually joke around saying, you screwed up in the same bar she screwed up. Boom, that's a joke right there. See, it gets them laughing. Whereas the first lesson, think about it, there's literally nothing to joke about, to banter. One of the keys, of course, is banter. Learn how to banter, and I do that a lot with my students. That's why it works well. But the very first time they met, bantering was not an option. They didn't know each other. They didn't know how to play piano. So it was just me doing a presentation for 20 minutes and then offering them cake and trying to get a conversation going just to socialize.
Yep. Yeah, that's super important, especially like in the beginning. The beginning, everyone's looking up to you to
Yes.
lead everyone. So that
Oh,
leadership
yeah.
skill that you have, like make sure like what I'm getting out of this as well is make sure that you are ready and prepared to lead a group of people now. Because that's the level of leadership that we move up from.
Exactly.
We go from
Exactly.
leading one to small group, and now like one to many when you start speaking in front of a stage.
Especially at the very beginning, because they're shy. They don't know how to play piano. They don't know each other. Some people are socially awkward. Here's another thing I forgot to mention when you asked me how I choose students. I also, the Myers-Briggs thing, I'm very cognizant of the level of extroversion or introversion in my students. I try not to have a group of only introverts because it makes it a lot harder for me. It's a lot more work. Most of the students in the beginner group tend to be introverts. So I have to admit, it's a bit of work. But now they're opening up, so it's
Opening
easier.
up, yeah,
But
yeah.
if I can have one who's more extroverted, it really helps.
Someone to kind of
In the
like
group
lead
meeting,
everyone.
that's a very important tip for all you teachers. If you're going to choose 10 or 12 people for your hybrid class, it's not just the level of playing, but personality counts. If you've got 12 introverts and you're an introvert, good luck on that first group class. It's not going to be easy.
Yeah.
But if you're an introvert, you've got 12 people, and 2 of them are extroverted and they're naturally funny. They're people who are just naturally funny. Even if they don't know how to play, make sure they come to that group meeting, that first group, because you know that they're gonna help break the ice. Just because they're extroverts, they'll just chat.
Yeah,
So
but
that's very important.
once you get out of the way, like you feel like people just open up naturally.
Yes.
Nice.
Like I said, after a month, I have much less to do now.
Yeah.
Last week was a good example. We had so many cancellations because of COVID and the weather. I said, is this still worth doing? I only had 4 people. I was a bit worried. Just 4 people. They came, but then they had been taking lessons for 3 months. So they sat down, they each played, and I was very relaxed. I was just giving them a lesson. And then my natural bantering ability kicked in. I was teaching them. They were laughing. And after 40, I was afraid that I wouldn't be able to fill up 45 minutes of time, but 45 minutes flew by. And I said, guys, we'll call it a night because I know you guys are tired. I'm tired too. They all left, no problem.
Yeah.
They didn't feel like they'd wasted, because some had to commute at least 45 minutes to get here. And none of them felt like they wasted their time. Because I gave them a good lesson, even though they were playing a 35-second piece. I still gave them something.
Yeah.
So that's where I saw after 3 months that when it's done properly and your program is solid, it will take over. It will take on a life of its own. And then you just go with the flow and you stop worrying. You don't overanalyze, and you trust that you've made the right choices in terms of the students. You know your stuff. You've gotten better at it after 3 months. And it gets easier. It gets easier.
Yep, 100%.
But be selective. That's what I would say. Be selective. Not everybody fits in well into a hybrid model. So if you're selective, it will go well. If you just go willy-nilly and accept everybody, it could go well, but then it's literally luck of the draw. You don't know. You're taking chances.
Yep. Yeah, I love it. Thanks for sharing again. I just want to say
Welcome.
thanks for this chat. It was an amazing pleasure being able to work with you. I remember the first time you reached out to me, you kind of like binged my YouTube videos and things like that.
Yes. Yeah.
And
I watch all your YouTube videos and I say, no, this is exactly what I liked about your approach is that you and I have the same philosophy, which is you're all about convincing people to do something to buy something you want to sell them without sounding like a pushy salesman. Those are your words. That is exactly what that's always how I've taught. And as you know, there's a lot of people marketing all kinds of things from every field.
Yeah.
Some of them do it well the way you do it. Others are just insufferable. I mean, they there's just the way they do it. It's the whole used car salesman thing.
Yeah. Yeah. The
Man,
old way.
those who try to sell me stuff and have that kind of attitude, it just drives me nuts. And that's why I went to you, because I needed a coach who had that same philosophy, because I said, I can't work with somebody who's going to give me the impression that the only way to sell is to really push, push, push like a used car salesman.
Hmm.
And you don't need to do that. As
Yeah.
long as you
No.
create something, it's like the famous quote from the movie Field of Dreams, which is way beyond your age. You
Yeah,
wouldn't
I
even know
know.
it. If you build it, they will come. It's a
Mm,
famous quote from that movie. Kevin Costner. It is a great movie.
I gotta check it
If you
out then.
build it, they will come. This summarizes what you've done with your business, and it summarizes what I've done with mine. I've
Hmm.
built a solid school. I don't need to worry about it. It's not just Google that brings people to me. It's what's on my website that brings them to me.
Yep.
Google takes them to my website, but what's on my website is what makes them call me.
Yep.
But what's on my website is what I've built over 35 years of teaching. So I built it. Now I don't worry about it. They come.
Yep.
Those who belong stay. Those who don't, find another school, and that's fine.
So important. So important. Yeah. Well, I will go ahead and I'll link over your website too, if in case anyone wants to, in case any students want to take lessons from you, any teachers want to
Absolutely.
reach out to you and ask.
I've got two websites. Go to make sure you put the MontrealPianoLessons.com. That's the one.
Yeah,
Montreal, the teaching
you can feel
website.
free to send it over to me. I'll put it in the
Yeah,
YouTube description.
great.
But yeah, if you
No,
ever want
it's
to,
great. Listen, I'm really happy. Thank you for everything. And now it's just going to keep growing. I'm not worried about it. And of course, at some point, if I ever do have time to do more things like Facebook acquisition or whatever, I'll get in touch with you. But right now, I'm fine with everything that I've
yeah,
got. I've so much going on that it's great to see that you're doing well. I wish you all the best. I mean,
yes.
you're doing great work. You're really helping a lot of musicians. It's not easy post pandemic. A lot of people are struggling, not
Hmm.
easy. So you're doing the music world, music community a great service by
Thank
offering what
you.
you offer.
Appreciate you, Tristan. If anyone else wants to reach out and chat, I'll put over like my calendar link as well. But yeah, I'm proud of you, man.